As a super famous TikToker, what is one piece of advice that you would give to parents around social media for their kids?
I would say let your kids be a creator instead of a consumer.
And that's exactly what you did.
Yes, 100%. I felt like I had to do something more than just sit there and watch it. Even now, I'm not someone who sits and scrolls for hours and wastes my day away on TikTok. Like, it's something that I want to be behind the screen doing, and I feel like too many kids are scared to do that, or maybe parents limit them in doing so. But I think it's a great way to be able to just express yourself and what you want to do, as long as you're doing it in an appropriate way.
Welcome to the Future of Education podcast, hosted by Mackenzie Price. Mackenzie is the founder of a revolutionary new school model that's disrupting education through AI. Join us as we discuss the latest in education innovation.
So as a mom of 2 teenage girls, I try my best to be that cool mom, of course, having boundaries too. But you know what? Sometimes they don't react. But today is one of those days where I feel like I'm going to get some good bragging rights because my guest today is Kendall Maynard. She is a freshman in college and she is an incredibly famous content creator on TikTok and Instagram. I first heard about her because my younger daughter is such a huge fan and we've gotten the pleasure to get to know each other. And I think she has a lot of great things to say when it comes to education. You know, we really believe that kids are like the experts in what's going on in schools, and I think Kendall's a testament to that. So Kendall, thanks for joining me today.
Of course.
It is really fun to get to meet someone like you. You are, you know, we've gotten to hang out a little bit. You're a normal teenage girl, right?
100%.
But you also have millions of eyes on you all the time. Tell us a little bit about how you became a social media contributor.
So I started social media going into my senior year. I was never allowed to have social media. I actually started...
Good parents, very good parents.
Yes,
who said no social media for you.
Yes,
okay.
They're very against the social media, I would say, in the beginning. So I started it behind their back, which you probably should not do. I do not recommend.
Behind the back.
Yes.
Okay.
So I started TikTok, and when I downloaded it, everything that was going on at the time was Get Ready With Me's. So I was like, oh, this is what everyone must be doing. So I went and blocked all my friends, and I started making them.
You blocked your friends?
I did.
Yeah, because it's kind of like embarrassing to sit there and do like a Get Ready With Me while
yes,
I talk about
100%.
whatever. Okay,
and
so you blocked your friends, and you knew you were like, I'm going for a different audience.
Yes, 100%. Okay. And I knew this is kind of what I wanted to reach. I never knew if it was possible, but that's what I did. I blocked everyone. I was hoping no one would find it. And then it took off a little bit, and my mom started to catch on, and she kind of just sat me down, and she just said...
Was she wondering, like, why do I hear her talking to herself in
yeah,
her
I would
room
whisper.
all the time?
My first videos were so cringy. They were so quiet. I would be quiet in my room. I'd buy things and do little hauls. And she started to catch on, and someone would send her my videos, and she just sat me down one day and was like, you're going to get hate. You need to know how to take it. That's all she said to me.
Yeah.
And so from then on out.
And did you have a thought, like, did you know what the message you wanted to promote was? Or were you like, I'm just going to get on film and I'm just going to be myself and talk? Did you have a goal with what you wanted to promote to your followers?
So when I started, I was super into like James Charles, makeup creators. So I wanted to start just doing makeup. I would buy makeup product reviews, stuff like that. And then that's when I blew up doing stuff like that. And people were like, share your life. And then that's where I kind of started doing lifestyle and more about what I do during the day.
Okay, got it. So you started this as a senior in high school. You're a freshman in college. So really the last year and a half has probably been life-changing for you.
I only had 300,000 followers in January of this year. So it just took off really quickly.
How many do you have now?
1.5 million.
1.5 million. Yeah, that is a big difference. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, and I remember when I met you the first time, you were getting ready to go off to college, and you told me a great story about your dorm situation, like getting it ready for dorm life, like decorating it?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, it was super fun because I had a brand reach out to me, so they kind of did the whole dorm decorating and stuff like that. So that was a super fun process. Just the whole college transition, I think, was a good growing point for me as well. I've had so many transition points in the last year, and I think that's what's made me take off so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your school experience, like kindergarten through high school. How was your school experience? And of course, like, would there be anything you would change about it?
Yeah, so I would say I loved school as a kid. I was one of those kids that just always wanted to do the most, if that made sense. When I was little, my parents would sit in teacher conferences like, hey, she's going to finish this. You need to give her extra work.
Okay.
I was always kind of in the Excel programs. It's just something that I love to do. I'd go to the doctor like, yeah, you're out of school. I'd be like, no, I actually want to be in school. You know what I mean? So I loved school so much up until, I would say, sophomore year of high school, because I was also into athletics and I just did a lot and I spread myself very thin.
You're a soccer player, right?
Yes, I played soccer and basketball.
Soccer and basketball. Okay, so
Yep.
very athletic.
Yes, that was always what I was going to college for, everything like that. I would say, though, as far as my school experience goes, I feel like since I went to public school, I didn't have a lot of opportunities to push myself to the most, if that makes sense. Like, my teachers were always having to give me more to do. And
Were they able to do that successfully?
I would say so, especially in the younger years. I feel like the elementaries and middle schools that I went to were very accepting of that, and they did a good job pushing me. But when you get to high school, there's only so much you can do.
What kind of student were you?
I was always a straight A student, and I think I really realized where I was wasting my time when COVID hit, because I went online for a semester and I would do my work in 2 hours, and then the rest of the day I would ride horses, and I was able to still achieve A's and go into my next years that were in person and do just the same amount of work in 12 hours in 2 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 2-hour learning at its finest, right? It doesn't take all day to get academics done. You can do really well in a short period of time.
100%.
And you show that. Kendall, you mentioned in high school you were a two-sport athlete. You were a great student. You were busy, I imagine.
100%. I also played national level sports. So at the same time as I was doing school sports, I was traveling in the summers. I was probably home for 2 weekends my sophomore year, because I would be in any state you could think of doing soccer, basketball, school camps, just everything. So when it came to school, it was hard to balance.
Yeah,
So
it is hard. What do you think are the big life skills that you learned from your sports experience?
I would say it's a lot of mental toughness. I think I have a lot of mental strength to be able to just get myself to push through anything. Like, sometimes grades would be hard to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get this done. But no matter what time it was, I would always get it done. Like, it does not matter. I would never be someone to be like, I'm just not going to do this.
And has that life skill translated into your social media career?
I would say so, 100%, because sometimes it's hard to get that motivation, especially in college now. I'm running so much and I have to do all these brand deals, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, I do not want to do this, but you just have to get it done at the end of the day.
Yeah. And speaking of sports, you kind of made a big decision when it was time to go to college. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was supposed to play soccer in college. That was always the goal. That's always what I was working towards. So I ended up signing with Northern Michigan my senior year, and that's when I discovered I wanted to go into law. And the program there is not what I was looking for, and I'm very academically focused, so I needed to find a different place to study that, and that's kind of where I made that sacrifice with soccer. And also I had social media going on. There's just no way I could play at the D1 or D2 level and balance all of it.
Yeah. So you decided at that point you were going to make a change.
Yeah.
So, Kendall, you are such an obviously smart, well-spoken young woman. Do you think that comes across in your social media?
I think so, but it depends on the video. There have been videos where I've made where I am talking about maybe educated things, and people are like, oh my gosh, you should be a lawyer, you're very well spoken. I get that a lot. But other times I feel like I also come off as just a girl who might be dumb just doing makeup. And when I tell people, oh, I want to go into law, I want to be a lawyer, they're like, oh, that doesn't make sense.
Well, what I think you are, though, is you're just a girl, right?
Yeah.
You're a teenage girl who's
100%.
getting ready and sharing what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
I always think it's interesting, though, when I watch social media, when people are making a decision about what their brand is going to be and if it's different. And I actually think, I've watched some of your content, and I think you do come off as a very just authentic, fun, wonderful young woman. And then, I've gotten the pleasure to hear about, your ambition and your career things and goals that you're doing and going to law.
I just feel like you have to be the one behind making something, if that makes sense.
What do you think about the social environment of traditional high school?
I want to say that's almost what ruined it for me, because I was always someone that really liked to go to school, but I watched one of your videos and you said one day your kid came home and she was really tired of going to school. She didn't want to go to school. And I kind of also gained that mentality. I didn't want to go to school, not because I didn't want to learn. It was the people that were there just constantly creating cliques. And I never was one to hang out with the most popular people. I was always an athlete. I didn't really associate myself. And a lot of times people would take that the wrong way as either me being stuck up or not wanting to be a part of their friend group, something like that. But it really wasn't that. And I think people judge you if you have passions to do more. And I think they're so closed-minded, and it's just a hard environment to be in if you want to do something bigger.
It feels like kids in traditional school want other people to be held down.
I think it's hard to see someone succeed in a way that you want to, but I think people are just too scared to do it. And so that's why they bring other people down, because they don't want to see someone do something they want to do deep down, but either they don't have the resources or they just don't have the mentality to do it, because it does take a lot and it takes a special person to be able to create something out of nothing.
Well, you've gotten to know a little bit about our schools
Yes.
and kind of the way we work. What's your reaction to that? Like, how does it sound to you?
I love it. Immediately after I talked to you guys, I called my dad right away. I had him on the phone. The next day he called me. He's like, I could not sleep after you told me about everything, because he never went to college. He's a successful business owner. He does not believe in the standard school system at all. So when he heard about it, he's super excited. And I'm excited about it because I like the school system just because I was good at it, and everyone likes things that they're good at. But also, I don't think it does enough to push people outside of their comfort zones of what they could really achieve, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As a super famous TikToker, what is one piece of advice that you would give to parents around social media for their kids?
I would say let your kids be a creator instead of a consumer.
And that's exactly what you did.
Yes, 100%. I felt like I had to do something more than just sit there and watch it. Even now, I'm not someone who sits and scrolls for hours and wastes my day away on TikTok. Like, it's something that I want to be behind the screen doing, and I feel like too many kids are scared to do that, or maybe parents limit them in doing so. But I think it's a great way to be able to just express yourself and what you want to do, as long as you're doing it in an appropriate way.
What's a tangible way that a parent can help their child to do this?
I would say to find out what your kid is interested in and really encourage their passion in whatever they want to pursue.
What are 3 ways that social media has been great for you?
I would say it's helped me form a lot of connections, just even being here, meeting you guys. I feel like my long-term goal with it might not be when I'm 30 being a mom that's a content creator, but maybe the connections that I can make out of it that will pursue into my profession, maybe law, owning an agency, something like that. And then I would say another one is just the friendships I've built along the way. I kind of was raised in a very toxic environment. I would say in high school I never was one to have a ton of friends. So I think I just earned a lot of friends along the way that I've always wanted to have, and it's kind of just paying off. And then lastly, I would say my relationships with my parents even. I feel like it's made us a lot closer, especially this becoming into a business. My parents are business owners, and it's just something that we can really bond over now, even though they were uneasy about it before. It's just something that's kind of turned into a really cool opportunity.
Your mom is amazing, by the way. Okay, so couple questions. What do you think is the hardest thing about being a content creator?
I want to say the people around you personally. Because from my account, I don't get a lot of hate. I don't get a lot of hate comments at all. I have a very supportive fan base. When I look through my comments, I never see anything bad. So it's not that I'm worried about hate from people out there when I post. It's my high school that hated on me when I started. The school that I just went into, first 2 weeks I was there, everyone would just make up things about me. Like, it's very an uninviting place, because the people that you're actually surrounded by are the people that will hate you the most, just because I don't know if it's a jealousy thing. I don't like to say that people would be jealous of me, but
I think it is a jealousy thing.
Yeah, so it's just like hard to feel invited. That's all.
And college is a hard transition to begin with. And then you were dealing with, like, what's the thing called, the online platform?
Yes, there's an online platform called Yik Yak, which a lot of people are familiar with, and people can just post anonymous things. So the first 2 weeks I was there, before I even got out of my dorm, met people just make things up about me, the worst things you could think of. And I was just like, even the worst normal person wouldn't do that type of thing. And I just feel like you could take your time to watch my content and know I wouldn't be that type of person to flip someone off in the cafeteria. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That's what we go around doing all the time, right?
Yes.
That's really tough. Well, it's gotten better for you, though?
I think so. I think people have realized that I'm not creating any issues and they haven't found anything to make a problem out of. So it's died down a bit. But as soon as I come out here, do these types of things, it's going again. They're like, oh, she's going to fail school. She's not going to do this. She's too focused on her social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, and that comes back to that mental toughness that you've learned through sports and growing up. I assume you're really having to implement some of that kind of mindset.
yeah, 100%. I just know where I'm going with my future and what I want to do with my social media and my career. So that's kind of just where I keep my focus.
So, you mentioned your parents were against you being on social media and did a pretty good job of that for quite a while. What's your advice to the parents out there who've got, a child who's like, please let me get on TikTok?
Yeah. I would say it kind of just depends on the parent, but I think there's a good guideline. I hear people that started social media when they're 8 years old, and for me personally, I just think that's so young. To a certain extent, I do think it can be a toxic environment, but I also think if you're on the right side of it and it's monitored by parents, I feel like it's a really good tool, and I feel like I have a lot of younger audiences that look up to me, and I create that type of good content that I'd want younger girls to see, but also there are bad sides to it, so I understand when parents are not so about social media.
Yeah. But I think it's about being thoughtful around how much time they're spending on it, who they're
I always had
following.
screen time until I was 18. Then when I turned 18, they took off my screen time. People would always make fun of me, but looking back at it now that I'm older, I appreciate what they did.
Yeah, that they had boundaries for you.
Yes, 100%. So I could only be on my phone for X amount of time a day, and then it would turn on at 6 a.m. It would turn off at 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's a great thing to be able to have. What about friendships that you've made through social media? Has that happened?
Yes, I've made a lot of friends through social media, and I love it because you're meeting people that are so like-minded as you, where I came from a small country town, I would say, and I'm kind of going towards the big city life, if that makes sense. So I never really had a lot of people that could relate to my ambitions, and just even going out to LA for some events and stuff and just meeting people that do what you do and want to do the things that you do. I think it's just inspiring, and it's the people I want to be around.
Yeah. Well, and you were in Austin this weekend. I think you and my daughter went shopping yesterday, and you were very excited about like a big city shopping experience,
yes,
right?
Yes. I love it.
There's some fun things that come with the city life, so that's good. So what do you think the future of education should look like?
I think the future of education should nurture what kids are good at. I feel like when you get to a certain age, you know what you want to do. And even if you don't, there's so many different exploratory routes that you can go that can put you into a real world position where you can experience maybe you do or don't like it, rather than going through so much education and just still not knowing because you're never put in that position to know. And I would see so many kids. My sister started this program called Links, and it would help either special needs or just people who struggled in school. And I was a part of it, and I would meet so many kids that couldn't do the schoolwork because it was just challenging for them, but their brains would just work in ways that it wasn't looked at. They were mechanics. They'd work at the shop, and they'd drop out of school to go do it. But my brain could not do the things they could do. They could work on a car like no other, or they could do art so well, but it would just not be looked at as anything amazing just because they couldn't do calculus.
Sure, but let's figure out what kids are gravitating towards, what their interests are, and then help kind of develop
that.
100%.
And even the 2-hour learning approach, like I love that. And I realized I like it because during COVID, I went online for a whole semester. I lived with my best friend. We'd get our work done in 2 hours in the morning, go ride horses all day. And it was just the best thing ever. And so after COVID hit, I just felt like I was going through school so bored. I'd finish my work right away, and I would just walk around the hallways because I had nothing else to do. My senior year just kind of felt like a joke.
Yeah. The traditional school model is just so inefficient, right?
Yes.
It's like sitting there all day to get through academic classes when you really could do this in a short period of time.
Yeah, 100%.
And especially for kids who are advanced like you are, you end up kind of twiddling your thumbs like, I got life to go live and things to do.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I hope that conversation was illuminating for all of you. I think Kendall had a lot of great wisdom that she dropped around screen time and how you should approach it and what we're looking at when we're thinking about content creation. So it's a lot of fun. You should follow her, check her out. She's Kendall Maynard, and she is on TikTok and Instagram. If you want to follow me for more content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, or you can go to Future of Education on Instagram or YouTube. In the meantime, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to help them unlock their potential.
Thanks for listening to Mackenzie Price and the Future of Education podcast. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it, so you can stay up to date on all our episodes. You can connect with Mackenzie on social media and be part of our daily conversation over on Instagram at futureof_education. For more info about the show and our guests, you can always visit futureofeducationpod.com. Lastly, if you're loving what you're learning, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back in your feed soon, but until then, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to unlock their potential.